Hi there, it's Friday the 18th of September 2020. This is our last day looking at how to create caring communities, of which we would all like to be part, of course. We've looked so far this week at the strength of communities, at the weaknesses of communities, at the opportunities which communities bring, and today we are going to look at the threats that there are to communities, both from without and within. So starting with threats from without, we see sadly persecution and opposition towards certain communities today. We think, for example, of the Muslim community, and all across the world there is a community of Muslims, and 99%, I'm sure, are peaceful, law-abiding, good people. Of course, there are some who are extreme and some who have committed terrible acts of terrorism and such like. And unfortunately, what sometimes happens is that people from out with the Muslim community then tar the whole Muslim community with the same brush and treat all of them in a very bad and negative way, which is not right and not fair. We see that with the Jewish community as well. There are many people who are in opposition to Jewish people simply because they are Jewish, and that's not right. We see that with the black community and with the opposition which black people are feeling in the world today. And again, that is not right. We see that with people who are gay or transgender, and there is opposition and persecution of them, and that is not right. It's not right for us to persecute any community in that way. So communities face persecution and opposition. And the church is also a community which has faced terrible persecution and opposition down through the ages and still today in many parts of the world, simply because of what we believe. But Jesus was well aware of persecution, and of course he himself faced the utmost persecution which drove him towards being killed, towards him giving his life on the cross for our sins. And that is the ultimate persecution, where he actually gave his life. And he spoke to people about persecution in Matthew chapter 5, and he says this, he said, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Jesus says to his followers that they will be persecuted because of their faith, and that is exactly what happens in our lives. But we should rejoice, because when we are being persecuted, it is because we are standing up for what is right and true and godly. And that persecution that comes is a mark of the fact that we are following the truth, following Jesus, who is the truth. But we must resist also these threats that come towards the church and towards other communities, and we must stand firm in our belief and follow the path which God has set out for us. So persecution is one threat from without. Another threat from without communities is a lack of funding or resources. Sometimes communities depend on funding and resources to help them. We think of the small business community, for example. We think of the terrible threat to small businesses during this period of COVID-19. So many who are struggling to make ends meet because of a lack of funds coming in, a lack of resources. And we need to do all we can to help our small businesses eat out wherever we can. But we also think about the lack of funding and resources that threaten the church too. Not being able to meet in our buildings is a threat to us, not having the number of volunteers helping us to run our programs and ministries, because so many people are still staying at home, and all of these bring threats to church life. But you know, again, we have the promise of God, don't we, that God will indeed build his church, and nothing can stop that ultimately. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 6 says that Paul was somebody who planted the seed and Apollos watered it, but God makes it grow. We do our bit within the church, but ultimately God is the one who makes the church grow, and he has promised to increase his church until the very end of time, until he takes us to be with him. But then of course we also face we face threats from within. We face division within communities, within neighbourhoods, between old and young, between black and white, between gay and straight, or rich and poor, or able-bodied and disabled, and all these divisions which happen within communities and can also happen within the church as well. In 1 Corinthians 11, Paul wrote to the church in Corinth and he says, I hear there are divisions among you, which was not good. And we need to resist these divisions. We need to stand strong together. As Christians, as the church, more than ever before, we need to stand together as one church. As Jesus says, there is one church, there is one faith and one body made up of every Christian believer, no matter the denomination. So we need to resist the threats to our communities and fight, and thank God for his church, the greatest community on earth. God bless you. Speak to you again soon.